Okay, everyone, good evening. My name is Chris Munns. I'm a resident of Hampton, former member of the board of the Winneconne School District, so it's always nice to be back here. And I will be serving as your moderator this evening. Rennie Cushing, who is the Winnacunnet moderator, would have loved to have been here tonight, but unfortunately he's unable to make it. And I was sworn in as the moderator pro tempore shortly before the meeting at about 6:30 this evening. So, as I said, I will be presiding over the meeting this evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I would like to lead us in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to explain, discuss, debate, and possibly amend the 6 warrant articles recommended by the Winneconne School Board and the Winneconned Budget Committee. Discussion will be limited to those matters only. Only residents of Hampton, Hampton Falls, Northampton, and Seabrook are permitted to speak, offer amendments, and/or vote at tonight's meeting. All amendments that may be proposed during the course of the meeting must be submitted in writing. Amendments may not change the intent of the warrant article. You may, for example, raise or reduce the dollar amount being requested, but you may not, for example, change the proposed use of funds requested from, say, replacing a roof to purchasing a computer system. Voting will be conducted by raising the voting cards you received when you signed in. However, if 5 voters make a request in writing for a vote to be taken by secret written ballot prior to that vote being taken, then the vote will be taken by secret written ballot. All questions should be directed to me. My job is to facilitate the meeting this evening. If need be, I will ask members of the school board or staff to respond to the question. Before we get started, I will entertain a motion to allow Winnacunnet school staff and teachers and SAU 21 staff who are not residents of Hampton, Hampton Falls, Northampton, and Seabrook to speak. Is there a motion to do so?
I'll make a motion to allow them to speak.
Motion made by Leslie LaFont. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Trish O'Keefe. All those in favor, raise your voting cards. All those opposed, raise your voting cards. Okay, the motion passes, and those individuals will be permitted to speak. So now we'll get started. Article number 1, the operating budget. Shall the school district raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first section for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $29,361,058. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $29,209,115, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the school district or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10 and Roman numeral 16, to make up the issue of a revised operating budget only. A majority vote is required. Note, the warrant article number 1, operating budget, does not include appropriations in any other warrant articles. This was recommended by the school board 5-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee, 6-0. Is there a motion to move forward, to place Article 1 on the official ballot?
I move to open the article for discussion.
I'll second that.
Did you get those? Okay, great. Is there anyone from the school board or administration who would like to speak to the warrant?
I would, please.
Great, Matt, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And I would like to thank the school board and the budget committee for the hard work and that they put into developing this budget. There's a great deal of detail involved in this budget. We really take care to try to align how we allocate resources with what our goals and mission are as a school, and we really felt some great support from both the school board and the budget committee, throughout this process. So thank you. So as I mentioned, when we develop a budget, we really want to allocate resources, based on what we prioritize and value as a community, while also being cognizant of fiscal responsibility to our taxpayers and other stakeholders within the community. And we really, I do feel that we achieved that mission, in really pushing forward the mission of personalized learning with those core values, beliefs, and learning expectations. So I will also note that this budget does align with our board-approved technology plan, the board-approved facilities plan, as well as the auditorium improvement plan, our HVAC 20-year plan, roofing management plan, as well as our competency-based education plan, which we are well along the way in. So, when developing a budget, enrollment is a key factor, both when we're looking at short-term and long-term budgeting. So Winnacunnet has, we have declined slightly in the last 10 years. However, there has been a plateau of about 1,100 students, and we do expect to remain in that range for the next 3 to 5 years time span. I will note we are starting to see some declining enrollments in our sending K-8 schools. So there is, beyond that 3 to 5 timeline, we do expect to see some reduction, probably closer to 1,000 students, maybe even under. But that is important when we look at the budget. There is a direct correlation on many of these accounts with how many students we have. Whether that's supplies, whether that's activities that they participate in, whether it's the number of Chromebooks that we purchase. That being said, being a school district, being a school, there's a significant portion of the budget that is salary based or fixed costs. When looking at a budget, there's about 85% in salaries, and a good portion embedded in facilities, infrastructure, etc. So we are proposing an operating budget of $29,361,058. This reflects a 2.05% increase, or $590,390 over the prior year, so this current school year. I will note, however, that the proposed budget is only 0.52%, or $151,943 more than the default budget. So that's a real important distinction. That really displays the care that was taken in developing this budget. Because when we look at the inflationary, markets that are currently in place, we're seeing cost escalation across the board, whether that's, cleaning supplies, whether that's books, whether it's, whether it's technology. We're seeing that in this current year, and we expect that to continue into the next year. So, CPI, Consumer Price Index information was just released today, actually, for the last, through January. And, nationwide, it's, we're looking at 7.5% inflation this past year, which is pretty incredible. So when you look at a 0.52% increase over the default, I think that is really testament to the fiscal responsibility embedded in this budget. So in any budget, there are drivers, there are budget drivers that will that affect whether it increases or decreases. Now I will note that we did receive ESSER funds through the federal stimulus packages this past year, which will continue over the next couple of years. And we built this budget utilizing those funds and continuing some of those initiatives that we started this past year using those ESSER funds. Additionally, we took care to maintain our current programming and services. And as always, we're re-examining our priorities and where we spend, how we spend money, within the current budget. So, budget drivers include, number one, salaries. So, as I mentioned, salaries take up a good portion of the budget, and we are seeing an increase of over $365,000 based on contractual cost of living adjustments, as well as step increases. And that's part of the C collective bargaining agreement that the community did approve. That's a 4-year contract. And we are contractually obligated to fulfill. Additionally, our transportation costs are increasing by over $78,000. This is for special education transportation, as well as our daily routes, our athletic transportation, field trips, and then other transportation such as foster care, or for our homeless population. Our retirement and FICA costs are seeing a pretty significant increase of $137,265. This includes this would be the contribution that the employer makes towards the New Hampshire retirement system. So just for reference, any certified staff, teachers, we as the employer contribute 21% of their salary towards the New Hampshire retirement system. Additionally, other non-certified employees, we contribute another 14%. So this is a pretty significant cost, and that has increased substantially, in addition to normal FICA contributions of 7.65%. Finally, our special education tuition costs are increasing by almost $200,000. So this is for, they're decreasing by almost $200,000. So this is for our out-of-district placements. So if we have students with special needs that require specialized services that we, the school, Winneconne can't provide, whether it's medical services, whether it's a more intensive programming, we are required to pay for tuition for them to attend a specialized school, and that includes both the tuition as well as their transportation. Finally, I just want to note, embedded throughout this budget is a few staffing changes. So on an annual basis, we do conduct a staffing analysis. We take a look at every department. We determine what our needs are for the following year, both short-term and long-term, and then make adjustments accordingly. So for this coming year, we are eliminating a half-time art teacher. We are reducing our food service staff by 1 employee. We're reducing a printer service technician from a full-time to a half-time position. we are adding a bridge academic support position, and we're restructuring a school suspension position to a behavior intervention counselor. And finally, we're restructuring a technology integrator position to a computer technician position. So, I mentioned salaries. You'll see throughout this budget there are cost of living adjustments throughout our various accounts, and that encompasses 3 employee classifications. So we have our teachers union. As I mentioned earlier, there's a collective bargaining agreement, and for this coming year, it's a 2.75% cost of living adjustments, per that warrant article. Additionally, we have our CESPA union, who are educational associates, and they're receiving a 1% cost of living adjustment. I will note, for our educational associates, that is an artificially low cost of living adjustment, and actually much lower than what I would like to provide for those employees, because in that warrant article, or that CBA rather, we negotiated for them that employee classification to receive health insurance, because previously they did not receive health insurance. So that was a high priority this last round of bargaining to make sure that these employees receive health insurance. But that is an area that we certainly want to identify the next round of bargaining. We are seeing currently that we're becoming less competitive with surrounding districts when it comes to compensation for our educational associates. It is extremely hard to find these employees. It's extremely hard to retain these employees, and these employees are our frontline workers. They are working with students with the greatest need, one-to-one positions, working with small groups. They make a big impact, and it is especially important that we address that compensation. And unfortunately, it is 2 years before the next CBA, but I do want to plant a seed that that is a high priority, that we resolve this compensation issue for our EAs. And then the final employee classification is our non-union staff. So that would be our administrators, our administrative assistants, our food service workers, our technology staff, our facilities team, and we align that cost of living with benchmarked inflation. So we look at CPI, the Consumer Price Index, from our geographic region, from July to align with our fiscal year. And from July of 2020 to July of 2021, we did document inflation of 4.3%, so that will be the cost of living adjustment for those employees. David, do you mind just going back one slide? Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Much appreciated. So at this point, I'm going to go into our individual departments and just provide a brief summary and the reason for any substantial increases or decreases. And again, I want to reiterate that embedded throughout this entire budget, we have seen cost escalation across the board. It's life right now. I'm sure you've all seen it with your groceries, with gas, with heating fuels. All those factors that are affecting you at home really have a big impact on our budget. So when we're bringing forth this budget of 2%, really when you look at inflationary factors, you could almost make the argument that it's a reduction in the budget. So our regular education budget is $7,600,963. This is an increase of almost $290,000, or 3.96%. So the driver for this increase, is based on those cost of living adjustments that I had addressed earlier, as well as that addition of the bridge academic support position. That was a position that was included in our ESSER funding for this current year that we feel is incredibly important, not just as we recover from the pandemic, but going forward long term. So we are rolling this into the operating budget and anticipate keeping this position as a long-term role. Additionally, we do have some reductions. We have the elimination of a half-time art teacher position. I will note that that is currently a vacant position, so that is not an actual person. Additionally, we're seeing a reduction in some equipment purchases. And finally, we are restructuring an in-school suspension program. So we're transferring that cost to the guidance counselor and changing that in-school suspension role into a behavior intervention counselor position. And really, when we're looking at mental health, we're looking at social emotional learning. That was a high priority, prior to the pandemic, but even more so now. So that was something that the administration really took a hard look at and how we could enhance some of our programming. So our special education budget is $3,434,551. This is a decrease of $123,113, or 3.46%. I will note special education costs are legally mandated based on students' IEPs. So this decrease is primarily due to that out-of-date district placement reduction that I had mentioned. This is not typical. Usually, when we look at budgeting, there's two budget drivers nationwide that's really effective funding for education, and that's special education and that's healthcare. So typically we see increases in special education. However, we were fortunate to have some graduating or some out of district placements that have been adjusted, and we've seen that reduction. That those reductions were slightly offset by cost of living adjustments, and we've also budgeted for an additional half an hour per week for our educational associates. And this is time for our EAs to work on paperwork, to do required documentation for Medicaid. This is essential tasks that we need them to be focused on and to complete in order to receive Medicaid reimbursements. And really a minimum cost when we look at the budget. So, our vocational programs are budgeted at $317,300, which is a decrease of just under $17,000, or 5% reduction. And this reflects an anticipated decline in student enrollment. So this is for our Seacoast School of Technology. So we tuition students to attend SST, and we have seen a slight reduction over the last couple of years, and we do anticipate that to be reduced next year as well. So our student activities budget is $914,173. This is an increase of just over $32,000, or 3.63%. And this reflects some of those inflationary factors, including rentals. So rentals of, pool time or ice rink time, track rentals, our bowling alley for our national champion bowler who is going to nationals this this spring. I believe it's Mr. Baker, which we're very proud of. And I will note that bowling is a new sport that the school board approved just a couple of years ago. So how fortuitous of us to add that sport.
We knew we had a ringer.
I guess so. And then we also have our normal cost of living adjustment increases. When looking at summer school, we are allocating $67,500, which reflects no change. I will note, however, that the summer school costs are supplemented via grant funding. So we are using some ESSER funding to create a more robust summer program for our students. We did expand the summer program this past year in response to the pandemic, and we do plan to continue that. We understand that this has been a very difficult 2 years, and we do want to offer any supports that we can provide for those students that so desire. So our evening school budget is $127,876. This is a decrease of just over $1,700 or 1.32% reduction. And this is based on some more grant funding that we're receiving. But I will note that the actual cost of the program is otherwise neutral. Our guidance account is $941,754. Which is an increase of just over $80,000 or 9.29%. So I'll note that this was a transfer of funds from the regular education accounts I had referenced earlier. So from the in-school suspension account, we had moved that position into guidance and changed the position to a behavior intervention counselor. So this is a position that helps students who require additional support, executive functioning intervention, and behavior reminders. The position also works with and supports students who are removed from the classroom. Additionally, we do have reductions with testing, workshops, and then those reductions are offset by increases due to COLA, steps, and right-sizing some contract days for professional staff. Our health services budget is $162,000. Oh, thank you, Dave. Looks like I need some tech support. Our health services budget is $162,314, which is an increase of just under $18,000 or 12.4%. So this reflects a staffing change primarily. So when we have a staff member who retires or leaves for some other reason and we hire their replacements, we oftentimes will have a variation in cost. So ideally, we would see we would hire someone at a lower cost, but that oftentimes is not the case because we are always looking for the candidate who is best qualified. So in this case, it is an increase in salary. Our speech services budget is $1. This account is just kept open. Is left here to keep open for future use. That's the same for other support services. We are just keeping the account open. Our improvement of instruction budget is $347,330. This is a decrease of just under $67,000 or negative 16.11%. So this reflects a restructure of the technology integration specialist to a computer technician position. So that role so the technology integration specialist is being eliminated and replaced by a computer technician position, and that computer technician position is now in the technology account. So that's the reason why this account is decreasing, because it is essentially being moved into technology. So that's and that's based on some changes in needs for the role, and we've also have a tuition reimbursement account that's been reduced due to anticipated reduction in course reimbursement. Our educational media account is budgeted at just under $180,000, which is a nominal increase of $351. So it's essentially level funded. There was a staff change, and then we've we've seen some increases in repair maintenance, books, and information access fees. So the aforementioned information technology account is $575,328. So you'll see that increase based primarily on the role that got shifted from improvement of instruction into this account. And I will also note that this account aligns with our technology plan. So we're recognizing some savings in other salaries, as well as software and technology accounts, as well as the reduction in the printer services technician position from a full-time position to a half-time position. I also mentioned, actually, if you were in the school board meeting earlier this evening, we awarded a bid for Chromebook purchases. We were fortunate to apply for and receive a grant approval for the purchase of Chromebooks. So that's approximately $112,000 that we will be reimbursed via the E-rate program. So that was removed from the information technology budget, so that did help reduce those costs. Additionally, we did have some increases in cost of living adjustments. Our support services account is $60,000, which shows no change. Our Board of Education account is budgeted at $73,351, which is an increase of $6,200 or 9.23%. And this is based on some increased legal expenditures that we've recognized, as well as some actual expenditure history. Our SAU services budget is $946,099, which is an increase of $60,509, which is a 6.83% increase. So SAU services is the office of the superintendent right across the street. So that's the salaries of the superintendent, our assistant superintendents, the business office, our human resources departments, accounts payable, payroll. We have a power school administrator. So those essential centralized services that we offer. Additionally, a real important component of the SAU services is that it's a shared cost, right? So the costs are shared amongst the 5 school districts, so we can achieve some economies of scale when we're making purchases. So that Chromebook purchase that we just did, we used a cooperative bid with Seabrook because we also received funding for Seabrook as well. When we look at our energy costs, we contract out electricity throughout the entire SAU, our heating fuel, so natural gas, oil, through the entire SAU. We try to share resources. For example, we have an ESOL teacher that we hired through the SAU that we share amongst 4 of our districts. So we get a full-time employee who is ostensibly, you'll find a better staff member if you hire full-time versus like a 0.2. And we were able to save $30,000 rather than have individual part-time employees at each district. So, we look at where we can share services. We have a SAU-wide copier contract, for example, and then look at where we can foster individuality within each district, because each school has its own culture, has its own identity. So we certainly don't want to remove that from those districts. But we do a lot of curriculum work. Dave Hobbs, my technology assistant here, he also happens to be the assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction and assessment. He works with the K-8 schools to align curriculum standards, and he's really worked hard with all the districts with the competency-based education initiative to try to align how our students, or what our students learn to graduate up into Winnecunnet. He's done a lot of work on program reviews. He just completed a math program review, which is critical because we want our K-8 schools to be sending students to Winnacunnet at roughly the same level, and that certainly helps Winnecunnet when we're looking to what we're looking to achieve here. But kudos to Dave with developing QPAs, rubrics, and the other curriculum work to prepare all of our districts. So I will finally note that when we allocate the SAU services by district, that is based on a calculation or formula of property valuation and enrollment. So even though the SAU budget actually did not increase, Winnecunnet has seen an increase because Winnecunnet has seen an increase in enrollment slightly versus our K-8 schools who have seen a decrease in enrollment. So that formula is such that Winnecunnet absorbed more of the costs. So the next budget is school administration, which is $974,473, which is an increase of just under $64,000 or 7.01%. The primary driver is cost of living adjustment, step increases. We also have increases in our graduation expenses as well as telephone costs. We saw a slight decrease in postage, so that's good that we are spending less on paper. Our buildings account is budgeted at $1,832,172, which is an increase of just under $99,000 or 5.71%. So again, this aligns with our facilities plan. This includes COLAs, steps. We have some additional repair and maintenance costs budgeted, based on cost escalation. We are resuming our renovations plan, so we have renovations budgeted into our annual operating budget. However, last year we paused that and we deferred any renovations due to economic conditions. However, we are planning to continue those renovations. Additionally, we have an increase in furniture costs. And then a significant increase in heating fuel costs. So I've mentioned energy costs. Electricity, we're under contract through next year, so we actually have a pretty amazing electric rate, particularly under these current conditions. However, our heating fuel, so in this case, natural gas, that contract comes up in June. So we have been monitoring the energy markets. Currently those costs are approximately 30% higher than it has been historically, and we do not anticipate those costs to decrease by the time we go out to bid in the spring. So I will note that this is something we're going to have to take a hard look at in the spring. We might look at doing a short-term contract, so that, depending on what the forecasts are, that is something that we do bid out across the entire SAU, and we do negotiate out. There might be some net metering savings we might be able to recognize as well with some hydro, but bottom line is we're going to all pay more for heat. So our grounds account is budgeted at $273,500, which is an increase of just under $18,000 or 7%. This includes additional grounds repair, the purchase of a maintenance cart, which is actually a replacement of one that has reached end of life, as well as asphalt repair of sidewalks. Additionally, our vehicles budget is just over $32,000 with a slight increase of $690, and that just reflects expenditures for our vehicle as well as our lease. We kept the security services budget open for future use. And our transportation budget is $1,276,846. This is an increase of just over $78,000, or 6.52%. And it is primarily due to increases in special education transportation. So, you know, when you look at special education transportation, it's kind of a two-edged sword. You know, we're recognizing some savings in our district placements because theoretically, and I don't know what the exact situation is here, nor could I identify anyone, but you know, conceivably a student could progress and they may be in a residential placement, but they improve and their needs change and they end up being in a day program. Well, that is a significant savings on tuition, but at that point, we're paying for transportation to and from the school. So that's one example of a situation where transportation could increase, or it could just be a new out-of-district placement. Additionally, we have our contract with First Student to provide for daily transportation, you know, athletic, field trip, and other services. Our debt service is budgeted at $1,967,313, or a decrease of $1,375, or 0.07%. And this is an exciting account. I know you're all excited about this. Well, as taxpayers, you should be, because this is the bond. This is the payment, the principal and interest payments for the bond for the building project that was nearly 20 years ago. So our last payment is scheduled in August of 2024. So that means that this account will be going to zero very soon. So that is going to be a almost $2 million reduction in the budget in a couple of years. It is August of 2024, so we are again. So that's going to be the first payment. So that's one payment in the 2024-2025 year. So that will be reduced by half, and then it's the 2025-2026 year that it'll be completely eliminated. But that means that the budget will see a significant decrease. I will note, however, that also means that the default budget is reduced by $2 million. So if anyone has ideas of putting in like a turf field or something, you want to rethink that. All right, so our employee benefits budget is $6,653,702. This is an increase of a little over $110,000, or 1.69%. So like I said, our retirement contribution and our FICA costs have increased. However, we were able to reduce this overall increase in the health insurance line. So we received a 5.7% guaranteed maximum rate, so that's GMR. That's the rate we received for our health insurance premium. That's in October. However, that's not the actual rate. The actual rate that we receive is in March. It's kind of like a rolling claims history. So when Health Trust looks at rates based on claims history, it's the previous 18 months. So that could potentially change. The most we could pay is the guaranteed maximum rate. Many times it comes in at the guaranteed maximum rate. So we typically have to budget for that. However, we established a healthcare expendable trust, which safeguards us from potential volatility in health insurance. I had mentioned healthcare is a big driver for educational costs. Well, from year to year, it can change pretty dramatically based on our employees. We may have employees that get married, so they go from a single to a two-person plan. We could have employees that have children, which is fantastic, but that goes from a two-person to a family plan, so that adds costs. Also, we're budgeting a year in advance, so things change, employees change, and that can be pretty significant cost. Now, that's one area that the Healthcare Expendable Trust assists in. The other area is we can under budget our health insurance account because we have this expendable trust at our disposal to fund should the costs be high. So we can hedge a little bit and, and anticipate that, hey, there might be a delta between the GMR and the actual, or, who knows, maybe we'll have a staffing change that was a family plan that's going to a single plan. So we can under budget, and then, if we can't absorb it into the budget, we have the expendable trust to tap into. So, the next budget is the Interfund Transfer. Now, I don't anticipate that many people in the room know what the Interfund Transfer is, so I will briefly explain. I know you are captivated by this presentation, so I just figured I'd spend some more time. The Interfund, so there are two funds. We have the general fund. The general fund is what pays for all the school expenses. Then we have the food service fund. The food service is separate from the general fund. It is supposed to be self-sustaining. So the food service fund receives revenue that's supposed to pay for all its expenditures through the National School Lunch Program. So that's reimbursement for free and reduced lunch. It's from students and staff paying for lunch, and that's supposed to essentially pay for it. Now, many schools can't cover that. Most school lunch programs run at a deficit because the USDA also has some fairly strict guidelines when it comes to sodium, when it comes to other health regulations, and it makes it very difficult for us to make palatable food that people want to eat, and it also increases costs. So our food service team does a really good job. I think they actually do make some meals and food that people do want and they do eat, and they're able to do it at a profitable level. So we are not budgeting a transfer because we do anticipate that will run either even or at a profit. Speaking of the food service, their budget is $602,195, which is an increase of just over $16,000, or 2.74%. And again, that's primarily due to cost escalation. I mean, food costs have increased exponentially, as well as paper goods and materials that are needed, and those increases are offset by the elimination of one staff member. So that brings us to the default budget. So as I mentioned, the default is $29,209,115. So this is $151,943 less than the proposed operating budget. So the default budget is so when we go to ballot, there'll be the operating budget. The operating budget is what you're voting at for. So that when you vote yay or nay on Article 1, it's on the operating budget. If that fails, we go to the default budget. So that's the $29.2 million. So at that point, it's a bottom line budget. So the school board will be tasked with creating a new budget based on that new number. Now, it's pretty impressive that there's only a delta of $150,000. So it's, there's, it won't be a huge task, but the default is defined by the prior year budget, plus or minus any debt service, contractual obligations, legal obligations, and then reduced by any one-time expenditures or by any elimination of positions. So that brings me to the end of Article 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And he did that all while wearing a mask. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to the operating budget? Okay. Somebody coming up? Article 1. If you could just give your name and address, that would be great.
Sure, thank you. My name is Tracy Emerton Williams. I'm at 129 Walnut Ave in Northampton, New Hampshire. And the board has seen me very recently, and I'm here to pretty much tell the same story. So good evening, school board members, WHS staff, and fellow supporters of the Winnacunnet High School. Like I said, my name is Tracy Emerton Williams, and I'm a proud resident of Northampton and a graduate of the Winnacunnet High School class of 1981. I'm also the mother of 3 WHS graduates, classes of 2011 and 2013, 2 of my own children, some of you may know, Alexandra and Nathaniel, and a foster daughter, Stacy Pierre Lewis, who we picked up in Rhode Island. And I'm proud to report that they are all thriving and accomplishing great things, and a lot of that has to do because of their education they received here at Winneconned. Alexandra currently lives in Woodstock, Vermont, graduated from Harvard with a degree in economics and a master's degree in museum studies, and now works at Harvard University, and I'm thrilled to report she's getting married this December. Stacy currently lives in Quincy, Massachusetts. She graduated from Newberry College with a degree in criminal justice. And she works at the MIT Broad Institute in their IP office. And she too is getting married this June. And then my son Nathaniel, who went through the WHS JROTC program, which I totally love, graduated from Ole Miss with a degree in Arabic and is now serving our country in the United States Marine Corps. When I left Winnacunnet in 1981, I went on to study at Bentley University, and I graduated in 1987 with an associate's in management and a bachelorette of science in computer information systems, which is my passion and my work. I've enjoyed a career in information technology, and I've worked for both the private and the public sector. The majority of my work has been in the state and local government sector, and includes the Commonwealths of Massachusetts and Kentucky, the states of Rhode Island, Arizona, Connecticut, and Vermont, and I'm hopeful I'll soon be starting a contract with the state of New Hampshire in their new cybersecurity program. I've also worked at Fortune 100 companies, including government contractors. Bill and I, we sometimes reminisce. We work for the same company at Science Applications International Corporation, and I've also worked for computer sciences. And this all has a reason why I'm telling you all this story. I spent 8 years working for Rhode Island as the IT director for the state Supreme Court, and then moved over to the executive branch where I was chief information officer for the state of Rhode Island. And I recently joined the ranks of book authors and contributed to a book about the mistakes that we made during the lead up to the COVID-19 disaster. As I mentioned, I'm a Winnacunnet High School grad, class of 81. I'm serving on our reunion planning committee. Since we couldn't convene last year, we're having our 40th +1 reunion. And one of our goals is to make sure that we've incorporated all 4 towns in our planning. So again, I don't tell you all of this just to hear the accomplishments of my children and myself, but to thank all of the teachers in Northampton at the elementary school level who taught me, taught my kids. The teachers here at Winneconned, who taught me and taught my kids. And we don't achieve these things alone. We do these through the support of the community, our families, our colleagues, and the teachers here at Winnacunnet. And in fact, the reason I went into computer science was because of the new lab we had implemented in 1979, which include TRS-80s. They seemed very cool to play games on, and that's where I first learned coding. I also understand the challenges that you all face and the administration faces. I've led large organizations. I've had to create budgets. I've had to do the magic of balancing priorities and needs and the requests from the community. So I'm totally empathetic about that. I understand a lot of work went into considering what you're going to need for IT and what you might need for support for the teachers. So I really do, I'm speaking from the heart when I say I understand the difficulties, but I'm also in the workplace and I understand the priorities that we really need to put on technology support, the infrastructure that supports the school, keeping it safe, keeping it sound, but also the differences in a position that supports instruction. It's just, they're not the same thing. Computer technicians are not the same thing as instructional designers. So in the immediate aftermath of September 11th, the Department of Homeland Security was created, and subsequently they sent grants to the states to enhance our disaster preparedness. I was then Chief Information Officer. And it was through these grants that we were able to write disaster response plans, practice them, and improve them. And one of the scenarios in those plans, now think about this, September 11th was in 2001, the Department of Homeland Security was created in 2003, and I was CIO in 2005. But one of the scenarios during that exercise was a global pandemic. And my team that worked with us on that disaster plan, we could not envision a global pandemic. We did our best to plan for it, but we never expected to actually live it, and the rest is history. So during that pandemic, the education field, the healthcare field, especially the education field, has taken a huge brunt of having to pivot very quickly to remote learning. And I'm incredibly impressed with the way they've had to do that. And they've developed expertise on the ground in the school to stay ready in case we have to go remote for the next pandemic. And did you know, according to U.S. News and World Report, the rate of teachers leaving their profession has risen 66% since the start of the pandemic. So turnover is going to be an ongoing problem. So if we want to retain good teachers, we need to support them. And I'm here to support our teachers and to speak up about the help they receive from these very specific roles in the print and copy center and the instructional technology integrator position. Again, I think those are invaluable. Hopefully these positions can be added back into the school's budget through the budgetary process. I think the copy center role helps teachers prepare for their classes with printed materials, and unless they have this help with the preparations, they need to leave critical face time with the students to get prepared with paper materials for the class. The instructional technology integrator position is critical to ensuring the various class curriculums are using the latest technical tools and the apps that engage students in learning. The integration of technology into instruction is so important as these students join the workplace of the future. And I did spend a couple of years teaching at the community college at Great Bay. I taught a lot of kids who left here and went over there in introductory computer science, and I think they're being very well prepared, and I just hope that we continue that. So again, I understand the school's leadership for being mindful of the school's budget, but also feel that our teachers need these critical supports, especially now. So in conclusion, I'd like to thank Mr. Wayne Elliott, who taught 8th grade oratorical. Without him, I wouldn't be able to be standing here right now without shivering in my shoes. And then while you consider your next step, please consider this quote by Abraham Lincoln. "I like to see a man proud of the place in which he lives, and I like to see a man live so this place will be proud of him." We should show our pride in our WHS school and our WHS teachers by including these two positions in the upcoming budget, and I urge you to add back the funds for this purpose. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to Article 1? Come on down. If you want to speak, come down.
Hi, my name is Vincent Jekin, 11 Tide Mill Road in Hampton. And also I have, I have two graduated children, not so much children anymore, they're doing very well. One is in the Navy, Sasebo, Japan, and my daughter is in Colorado now working for Lockheed Martin, and she got her master's in aerospace engineering. I've been a founding member, was a founding member of the Friends of Winneconned Foundation, and which helped, of course, expand our building here and get the vote through to get all 4 towns to pass the addition here. So I've been asked to come up and speak about this tech integrator position. Sorry, I'm not a public speaker. You know, I have to say, you know, I've got 30 plus years in IT. I understand it quite well. I went to a vocational high school, technical high school, out of Beverly, Massachusetts. And I've been in IT ever since. I've been working many jobs, and you know, actually I heard you say SAIC? Yeah. I currently work for SAIC. That's actually my job right now, out of Andover, Mass. I'm a systems administrator, but I've held many other positions before that. And you know, switching from a tech integrator position, as I understand it, to a technician position, is that correct? Is it okay to ask questions, or is that not appropriate?
Well, if you have a specific question, yeah, let me know what it is.
So would it be safe to say, changing from a tech integrator to a technician would be more reactive than proactive for that position, or is that not true?
Is there someone on the board or the staff that would like to answer that? Would you like to?
Well, I was asking Mr. Saltmarsh because he.
I'm Mr. Hobbs.
Oh, Hobbs. Sorry. Sorry.
I don't think you can define the position as being proactive.
Well, if you're going to answer the question, then you need to come to the microphone.
Okay. He said he didn't think you could.
The title of the position
Could
is
you
not
identify
determined.
yourself? Could you identify yourself?
Jason Saltmarsh, Northampton.
Okay.
Also IT director at Winneconned High School.
Okay. Thank you.
I would like to say that the title of the position does not determine whether or not it's proactive or reactive. It's how the person conducts themselves and how that position is fulfilled.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, based on my experience, though, you know, I understand that the title doesn't define what they do, but typically technicians are more reactive, in my experience. I don't think that would be beneficial to the staff here at Winneconne, and I think the funding for that position should be reestablished into the budget. So I guess that's my position.
Okay. Thank you. Someone else? Come on down.
I'm Shannon Clifford, 124 Landing Road, Hampton,
Thank you.
and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I wrote it down so I don't forget anything. Okay, so I'm a Hampton resident, a parent, a Winnacunnet student, and also a 20-plus year staff member here at the high school. And I'm speaking today in regards to the operating budget rationale for the next school year, specifically what the last two people spoke on, the improvement of instruction from slide 11. It states that the decrease in funding reflects the restructure of the technology integration specialist to a computer technician position. You know the rest of it. Okay, so I just want to go on record. I firmly believe that dissolving the position of technology integrator would actually directly impact instruction in a negative way. The technology outcomes that are stated in the 2022 to 2024 technology plan, those outcomes mention many components of important technology and its accessibility to students and staff. And of course, I understand that to implement all this technology and to continue to provide computers for each student, computer technicians are of course vital, and the infrastructure that goes with that. However, access to properly functioning technology is only the beginning and only part of what we really need. We also need our teachers to be able to use the technology in new and dynamic ways that engage our students. The very technology outcomes that I just referred to also actually state that Winnacunnet, quote, will hire train, and recruit staff to help teachers better integrate technology in the classroom, unquote. So that's exactly what our current technology integrator does. So it runs in direct contradiction to the budget detail, calling to dissolve the position. The implementation also cited in that, the implementation of the one-to-one device means that we have a responsibility to our students to provide creative, interesting, engaging lessons that help them to be digitally savvy, responsible, and also competitive in the way that they use the technology. So it's not just being able to live stream or being able to access the internet, but it's how to use all these other things that are part of the internet that are available to us to use as tools as teachers. So we need a professional integrator. Also, we're competing with our students' phones, right? So think about how engaged they are with their phones, and some of us right now with our phones. We need to be able to compete with that in the classroom. And to do that requires an enormous amount of know-how, and there's a huge learning curve. And I speak from experience here in learning all kinds of things about it. But this is why we need the professional integrator to help us teachers learn how we can better harness the students' natural interest and engagement in technology. So that when they leave here, they are digitally literate, is what I'm calling it. And so I think the best way to make that happen is to keep the position, or I guess reinstate the funds for it, whichever. Anyway, and lastly, I just want to mention my support for the current specialist. And I've used her a lot in my capacity as a teacher, and all kinds of things. And I could cite a long list of different types of platforms that she's helped me to use to create engaging lessons, what I like to think are engaging lessons. So anyway, I wrote her a recommendation, which I'd be happy to provide if anyone is interested in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public that would like to speak to article number 1?
Good evening. My name is Kelly Richards. I'm a French teacher here at Winneconned.
Excuse me, could you just repeat your name? We couldn't hear you.
My name is Kelly Richards, and I'm a French teacher here at Winneconne. And I've taught here for 14 years. And I have to say, when I came here, it was the 4th district that I worked in. Do you mind if I lower this? May I do that?
Yeah, so we can hear.
Thank you. And it was by far the best district that I had ever worked in because of the caliber of the administration, the caliber of the teachers, the support staff, and the budget. We're a well-funded school. We're one of the top schools in New Hampshire, and we've earned that. We've earned it because we've worked at it, and we've built the resources, the personnel that can deliver what our students need to be 21st century learners, ready for college and ready for work. I believe that you get what you pay for, and we've been paying for positions that we've gotten a lot of mileage out of. And I fear that we're eliminating some positions for budgetary reasons, which, as noted earlier, seem sensible on paper, but don't seem sensible to the school community. We're in a little bit of a crisis right now in our school community, to be honest. People are hurting. We're fractured. We don't feel connected. And these particular cuts cut deeply for some. It's more than just the job, it's the person behind the job that we're trying to stand up for. I'd like to speak, however, to the jobs themselves. regarding the copy center position, and I mentioned this the last time I spoke, as a teacher in the classroom, it's not uncommon to need something at the last minute. We're fortunate that we have printers in many of our wings. You can send copies down and you can run down, flash your cart key and get your copies made. The 1 week that our copy center employee was out, we were bottlenecked. I went down to make copies and I was the third person in line to make copies for my class that started 3 minutes later. Now that's not a normal occurrence, but it does happen. I've seen people run into the copy room where our individual copies are and turn around briskly and head for another wing because they've got to get their copies printed before their kids show up in the classroom. So having someone that we can rely on, who can do the copies for us, is really important. I feel like if we move from a full-time to a part-time position, we're going to be doing a lot more of the clerical piece ourselves, which will be a time management piece. It will be a bit of a hardship. We can get it done for sure, but who's going to pay for it? The student in the classroom, because I'm going to spend more time copying than I would have previously. And I know that the person in the copy center does a lot more than just run copies. They do a lot for the National Honor Society. They create binders. They do large packets. They also are there to service the machines in our own wings when we have issues, when we run out of paper, if we have a paper jam, if there's no toner. You can email or call that person and they'll come down immediately and help you. So the position itself is more than just standing in that room and making copies. Previously, when I first started here, there were 2 women that shared that position. I remember when the current hire was brought on, a lot of us thought, how can one person do this? It needed 2 people before. And yet one person does do it and has done it efficiently. So going from one single full-time person to a half-time person doesn't feel like it's truly going to service our needs. I guess the other thing to consider with the copy center is that the last 2 years with the pandemic we've seen a huge shift to virtual schooling and online learning, and so there hasn't been as much of a demand. We've talked about the huge absenteeism that we see in the student population, and kids aren't back yet 100%. So when they come back 100%, will we be ready for that? I don't know. Next year will be different. Mr. McGowan stated the other day that he thought it would take us several years to get back to normal. So let's anticipate for that and let's be ready for that. In regards to the tech integrator position, I agree with what was previously stated about the nature of that position and how important it is at this time, and that they serve a much different role than a technician. This is a person that you can call and say, I have this great project that I want to do. Can you help me do it? What kind of tools do you have that you can teach me that I can use? I picked up my phone multiple times this school year and called and said, I need help with this right now, and they actually show up in my classroom within 10 minutes. If I didn't have a technology integrator here, I'd be going to conferences more. I haven't gone to a conference in years because I have someone here in the building who's hands-on, who can come down and show me what I need to know and help me execute it. I know that just within the past week, one of my colleagues in the language department did a really cool virtual reality experience, and this was the result of the technology integrator's expertise. This teacher actually had students logging in dropping in 4 different places along the Mexican-American border so students could see and experience and empathize what it was like to be there. That wouldn't happen without a technology integrator. I know that the English department recently has benefited from that position. Freshman seminar has also benefited with presentation tools, ebooks, podcasts, etc. Science recently benefited from that position, getting help with a recent project. So I think even though we're sparsely represented tonight, I think that we represent a lot of the teachers in this building. I guess I would ask you to reconsider the cuts that you're making, have a longer vision. Seeing the whole budget this evening, I see that there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel for residents in this community, and I would just ask you to think about that and to have long vision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Come on down.
Hello, my name is Kate McKenney. I'm an English teacher at Winnacunnet, and I did not prepare any speech, so I'll be very brief, I promise you. But I just wanted to provide you an English teacher's or any teacher's position. This year, because of the pandemic, of course, like any year, we're moving towards personalization. The demands on my time are increasing. The students are at my care. I meet with students after school. I stay here sometimes.
Excuse me. Would you mind just lowering your mask so we can hear better?
Of course.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry about that. I stay here really late. I meet with a lot of students. I dedicate my planning time. If the students need me, I'm with them. I'm helping them catch up because they're absent because of COVID or because they need to clarify something. I'm helping them write. I write them recommendation letters. This year I wrote 14 of them, and that's about an hour per recommendation letter or more because I take this seriously. So I do a lot of things, and the students are my center. I eat my lunch while working because I read their papers. I give them feedback on college essays. I give them feedback on their essays for my classes beyond what I do in the classroom. So not having a technology integrator and reducing the position of the copy center lady would really affect my time with the students. I will be spending time standing in line, like what Kelly, Ms. Richards said, waiting to copy materials for my students. Plus, I don't have the expertise. I jammed the machine twice last week, and I'm sorry to report this, and I had no time to fix it. I just called up Mary Margaret and said, the machine is jammed. I don't know what to do. You do whatever you need to. So I am also, I know that we have been posting a lot of materials online because the kids are absent because of distance learning, but even now, because of COVID, it's crazy. Some of the kids are absent. It's really hard to balance all of that. So a lot of the materials are not being copied. However, when the kids are in class and I ask them if I have a moment, the copy machine is nearby, and I say, how many of you would like to have a printed copy? I thought 2, 3, right? The whole class, 21 of them, raised their hands. And so there I was, while they're doing their own independent work, running in and out and trying to make those 21 copies to support them because research tells us that some of the kids learn better on paper. I am a paper and pen girl, old girl. I don't like computers, I will be honest. They serve their purpose. I will not be sitting there exploring technology. The technology integrator helped me with that because I know I need to move the kids towards the 21st century, but I'm very happy with my book and with my pen and paper. So this is the level of expertise that they bring in and the support that they bring into me as a teacher to help the kids so they can become successful in the future. And I just wanted you to consider that as you make the decisions. I don't presume to understand anything about the budget. I am not presuming anything about numbers either. I don't know how it works. I'm here to tell you how it feels for the teacher and how much support we get from those two positions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And I can assure you, you are not the only person that's ever jammed this copy. Anyone else like to speak?
Mr. Moderator, thank you. John Croto, 65 Carolyn Ave, here in Hampton. Also a teacher here at Winnacunnet High School. I've been for, I think, 27 years, quite a while. Yeah, a lot of teachers are leaving the profession. You hear that in the news an awful lot across the country. I don't think we're losing a ton here at Winnacunnet High School. However, I don't know any teacher who hasn't really considered leaving the profession. Myself, after 27 years, a job that I've loved, I felt that I've done really good at it. When the pandemic hit, the job became much more difficult, and probably would have retired early. I know I probably look like I could retire earlier, but it would be an early retirement for me. But the support that I got, especially from the tech integrator, I think saved my job. The technology that I'm using now has really transformed the way I teach, and I see that in other teachers' classrooms as well. So the value of that position, technology is not going away. The technology salespeople are really coming out with some really great materials now that we will need a tech integrator to help bring it into the classroom. But I just wanted to add that bit of the story. But I wanted to get to the point. Mr. Moderator, I believe we have to propose a dollar amount.
Yes, if you want to adjust the budget, you need to submit a written amendment with a dollar amount attached to it.
Okay, thanks. I think I have that here. From the information that we've gotten from the business office, the sum necessary to restore the two positions eliminated from the budget, the full-time employee technology integrator at $110,402, and the full-time employee print services technician at $43,440. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and that comes to roughly $154,000. I'd like to make a motion that we add $154,000 back into the budget expressly for these. I understand we can't earmark it here, but I think if the money's there, we can make that decision at a later time.
Do you have the amendment?
I do.
Excuse me, John. You just want to get your name correct?
Yep. John Croto. Yeah.
Can you spell the last name?
Oh, yes.
So we get it correct?
John Croto, C-R-O-T-E-A-U.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much. I do believe this is a great budget. Thank you, Mr. Ferrara. With your presentation was engaging, and it provides a very transparent budget. I think it's a great budget.
I think Matt actually had a question for you.
Okay.
So just a point of clarification. So $153,842 are those two positions. Are you intending to keep the computer technician position, or do you want to reduce it by that amount?
That's an interesting question. I think the computer technician position that would be added was around, was it 84,000?
It's 84,700.
Right. So
the difference is $69,065. I just want to give you that information.
Right. I believe a second amendment could be made to reduce the budget by the 84,000.
So your proposal is to add $154,000.
Right, with the understanding that perhaps if the tech integrator position is restored, that we may not need the computer tech service provider, what's the name of the position?
Yeah, so computer technician.
The computer technician, support technician.
So I guess the question is, do you want to budget for all 3 positions or just the technology integrator and the printer services? That's essentially what. So if you want to budget for all 3, it's the 154. If you want to budget for just the technology integrator and printer services, it's 69.65.
Right, which would be a considerable savings. If the board and the administration would believe that we would not need that position if we restored the technology integrator position, and the copy center technician also provided some tech support as well, if that was full-time. If I could put the administration on the spot here to ask, if that position was restored, would you need the technology support person?
So I think it might be helpful for the entire audience if maybe Mr. Saltmarsh or Mr. Hobbs spoke to those 2 positions, and then they, or probably Jason answered.
No, hold on. We've got an amendment that's been submitted, and I'm just trying to make sure I understand exactly what the amendment is. And the amendment is to add $154,000 to the budget so that in the language of the warrant article, it would increase the total amount by $154,000, correct?
That's what I understand, yeah.
Okay.
However, what Mr. Farrar is proposing is that if we restore those positions, there is another position that's being proposed that we wouldn't need.
We have to kind of do one thing at a time.
May not need.
So I guess my question for Mr. Farrar is, if we increase the budget by $154,000, does that also increase the default budget by the same amount? And so I want to make sure we have the language correct.
So if we increase by 154, the default will go up by, yes, it'll definitely go up by the 43,440. I will need to verify on the tech integrator.
Mr. Moderator, point of order.
Yes.
I'd like to second the motion so we can continue.
Well, I want to understand what the motion is first, so that I can read it back to folks, and then we can get a second. I understand we need a second. I'm just trying to establish what the amendment is right now. Because the amendment as written says proposing to add the amount of $154,000 to the Winnecunnet operating budget. That hasn't changed any language in the warrant article. The warrant article the language needs to be amended. And I'm trying to understand what that means. So, I mean, it's clear that you want to add $154,000, which would increase the budget, by my calculation, to $29,515,058. I'm assuming that's what the amended proposal is.
I'm of the understanding that I can only add to the bottom line.
Right.
Right.
So you're increasing the amount that's stated in the warrant article by $154,000.
Correct.
To an amount to again, you can check my math, $29,515,858. Or $29,515,058.
Correct.
Right? So that's the amendment. Is that okay in terms of what you need?
Well, whatever's written is what we're all going to go with.
He hasn't written it that way.
Maybe simply, it's an amendment. He recognizes that he can only amend the bottom line. He's seeking to increase the bottom line by 154. I get the same number that you do.
Okay.
That's what if he's proposing that, then we need a second, and we can continue.
So the amendment is to increase the bottom line by $154,000 to a total of $29,515,058. Is there a second?
There was.
That's Mr. Beatty.
Yeah, Ed B., 149 Drinkwater Road, Hampton Falls.
Okay, we're now open for discussion just on the amendment. And I think, Matt, you wanted to suggest that somebody maybe speak?
Well, yes, thank you. I was suggesting to answer Mr. Croto's question and then also to just provide some rationale from the administration side as to why the reduction was made, or the change was made.
I am a little leery that if I do reduce it by the amount that's currently proposed in the budget for the technology support person, that the decision might be made, well, you didn't add enough money. We wanted that other position, so we kept it in there.
So again, the motion on the floor is adding $154,000. That's what we're talking about.
Correct.
So does anyone want to speak to that motion to increase that amount, to add that amount? Over here? Come on down.
Linda Libby, 127 Atlantic Avenue, Northampton, New Hampshire. So I'm assuming that the people that spoke before the motion was made, that same type of conversation can keep going. Because we have a motion on the floor. So just if we want to add more information to it.
We're talking about the rationale for behind this amendment. So if you have something else you want to add, please do.
Yeah. So my name's Linda Libby again, and I have been working here as an educational associate supporting students with special needs since 2004. All three of my children went here, doing great, successful adults. I went here, proud graduate. I care a lot about this school. I care a lot about the future of this school and the future success of this school. I care deeply about the future success of this school. So I can tell you, and forgive me if I'm a little bit all over the map, but have a lot running through my head. But the biggest thing that I want to say is that I feel like the stakeholders were not consulted about these cuts in advance. And these two positions directly affect teaching and learning. Not like the hardware and the software of the Chromebooks, which is what a computer technician does, but teaching and learning, okay, which is what the end goal of our school is, a successful outcome of our students. And the tech integrator saved our lives, okay, during the pandemic. And the pandemic is not over. And we're not gonna be, we're always gonna have new staff. We're always gonna have new students that are gonna need to continue to learn, to be, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but people that are digital citizens, good digital citizens, which I believe Julie Hall, the tech integrator, wrote that curriculum for our freshman seminar. Who in the building is going to be helping teachers and staff when they are wanting to learn about a new app and how to use it? I don't know, Mr. Saltmarsh. Who's going to be teaching the teachers and the staff how to use the apps? I approached some of the computer technician people and asked for help one day when the tech integrator was not here, and no one could help me. I was told that the tech integrator is the only person that can teach me about that app. So this is just incredibly important. So, which leads me to our Winnacunnet High School technology plan, dated 2022 to 2024. It's a school board approved document. And I wanted to ask Mr. Saltmarsh, who was involved in writing this plan? So the administrative team wrote this plan, but teachers were not involved, support staff were not involved, students were not involved. The community was not involved in writing this plan. If you pull the plan up, and by the way, it goes through 2024, and when you read the plan, there's all kinds of language in here about a technology integrator. It includes our copy technician. It does not include the addition in the budget or any language for adding a computer technician. So my question to the board is, I don't know how the board ever approved these cuts without referring back to this document. This is your guide. This is the board's guide. You guys approved this. So it's just extremely disheartening. You can't have a plan unless you've included all of the stakeholders. So I went to the New Hampshire DOE, Office of Technology, the Office of Educational Technology, New Hampshire DOE site. And I looked up outline of effective technology plan. And it talks about mission and vision. Well, all the stakeholders need to be included in that.
Excuse me. I think we really need to stay focused on the amendment.
Okay, I'm talking
not
about
the technology plan per se.
But this is critical to it. So I'm just going to read you a few lines from the tech plan. Every student at Winnecunnet will have a robust digital content available for remote access. Every staff member at Winnecunnet will have focused professional development around technology integration. That's in the plan. Winnecunnet High School will hire, train, and recruit staff to help teachers better integrate technology in the classroom. IT personnel. The IT services department include a director, systems administrator, database administrator, one computer technician, not two, a print services technician, a technology integrator who works under the director of curriculum to provide training and assistance to Winneconnect teachers and students. Technology goals 2012 to 2024. Instructional support. Instructional support and professional development are the cornerstone of successful educational technology programs. Winneconnect professional development programming will continue to focus on the appropriate use of Chromebooks and digital tools to support curricular goals. This is what our technology integrator does. And then we come to special needs students. And this is a very big point with me because this is the population that I support. The technology integrator has been critical to helping our staff, our support staff, work with those students. I can't tell you how many times I've called the tech integrator up and said, can you help me with this app? Can you help me learn about this? The student's having trouble with this particular thing, can you show me how this works? What can I do to help support the student? Okay, these are accessibility issues. The other thing is the copy technician. I work with sometimes students who are visually impaired, and sometimes on a moment's notice, I have a document that I have to have blown up to a certain degree so the student can learn and do what the assignment is. And I'm not going to be able to do that if we don't have a copy technician that's there that can drop what they're doing, enlarge the document, increase the font, and all of that. And it's just really important. So I would ask, and then regarding the copy, for the copy technician, I did want to add that I think you might have heard a couple of weeks ago, that person was absent because they were caring for a sick family. I can tell you that I personally volunteered for math teachers to make copies down, not at the copy center, but down in the workroom And it took me 8 or 9 minutes per class. This is time taken away from our instruction, from our curriculum planning, from our lesson planning. You want the teachers to make copies instead of doing their lesson planning? This directly affects morale. So this is a position that is needed. I would ask that administration try to create a committee that is inclusive and that brings all of the stakeholders together to rewrite a tech plan and to do, I'm asking one more thing.
Excuse me, we're talking about the amendment.
Right, okay.
So let's please keep the comments pertinent to the amendment.
Okay, so I just would like to ask that I think it's really important that we include the stakeholders, and I am in favor of adding this money back into the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like we have a couple other folks. Come on down. And again, let's make sure we keep the comments focused on the amendment. The item for discussion is whether or not to increase the budget by $154,000.
Okay, well, my name is Michelle Bishop Cooper, class of 90. I'm a child that graduated last year, and I'm a senior this year. I don't know if this pertains to the amendment, but I've been here since 7 o'clock, so I am going to read my statement. This is in regards to the IT print services tech. Again, we're talking about budgets, talking about numbers, but I would like to put a face to Mrs. Cahoon as a person and let this community know what I have come to know of her over the last year and a half. I met Mary Margaret at Winnecunnet during the summer of 2020 while she was handling Chromebook issues and volunteering for a multitude of other things. She had volunteered to help the former Winneconne High School computer technician handle Chromebook handoffs for replacement repairs. Mary Margaret stepped up. While she was doing this, she also realized that she could help out with food service with handing out free meals. They were happy to have her help. Again, she stepped up. Then she started helping with the yearbook and getting orders ready for the school store. She kept herself busy while she wasn't here to copy. She became the point person for pickup and drop off of Chromebooks, yearbooks, school store orders, plus help food service hand out the meals. She saw a need and stepped in to help while continuing all of her other duties for the school. When the drama department was looking for volunteers because they were short-handed, she stepped up again. I can tell you that I had an issue with one of my child's Chromebooks in the spring of 2021 and an issue with the other child's in the fall of 2021. Both times I emailed and called, leaving a message for the former computer technician whose job it was to handle all Chromebook issues. Both times I was completely ignored. I never got a response. Both times I reached out to Mrs. Cahoon. I got a response very quickly and was helped the same day. She met a lot of students and parents through all of the help that she was giving and built relationships with many of them. So much so that she let the kids know that when in-school learning started back up, if they were having a rough day and needed to see a friendly face or just wanted to pop in by her office to say hi, her door was open. I can tell you with the stress of trying to get back into the swing of things and all of the COVID stressors, both of my children took advantage of that opportunity. Mary Margaret Cahoon is one of the most caring and selfless people I've ever met. She truly cares about this school and everyone in it. She puts her heart and soul into this place, and it shows if you actually take a minute to talk to her. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one other person. Come on down.
Meeting would be over by now. I was going to have my colleague Linda Libby read this for me because I just finished working at the adult ed program. My name is Pam Keir. I'm a Hampton resident. I I work at Winneconned High School this is my 18th year. Your computer did what? I'll be right there. She's helped me with the complex technology needs some of our students have required over the years, and always with her calm, knowing manner. I hope you will reconsider eliminating these two positions and agree with me that the positions are valuable in enriching, maintaining, and supporting learning for all students and delivering the curriculum for all teachers. And I support the addition, the amendment of the $154,000 to the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin Packard, 21 Raymond Drive, Seabrook, New Hampshire. I just have a quick question, hopefully. So if this amendment, the proposed amendment, would it add back 2 positions cut, but then also the default budget would not have the computer technician in it, is that correct? The computer technician would only be in the proposed budget, not in the default budget?
Matt, would you like to answer that?
Yes, thank you. So when you're adding funds, when you propose to make an amendment to add funds back into the budget, it only affects the bottom line. So those funds, the school board needs to determine how to utilize those funds. So they could potentially utilize it for these positions, or they could potentially not. So they would need to then take action to determine how they plan on using those funds, at which point it'll determine how it affects the default budget. So that will be determined tonight, certainly.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Thanks. Dave Hobbs, Assistant Superintendent. Deeply ironic that I'm here because I actually had the tech integrator position at Winnacunnet. But you know what? First, I want to congratulate the board, the administration, budget committee on adding the counseling, the bridges counselor, the SEL supports. I mean, we talked a lot about what we're cutting, but there are some additions here that I think reflect some of the priorities that are going on in the country. So kudos to you guys on that. Look, this is hard, and the vote's going to turn out the way the vote's going to turn out tonight. But I think the administration at least deserves some explanation in terms of the rationale for the movement in the IT department. Just a couple points. First is, you know, we've got a recommendation from our administration. It's been through the budget committee. It's been through the board. Many eyes have looked at these changes in the IT department. When we built the tech integrator position, it was, I think, 2012. It was a while ago. Winneconned was, we had maybe 8 routers in the whole building. We had very few machines. We were on the precipice of a one-to-one initiative and a wireless infrastructure upgrade, the likes of which we hadn't even comprehended before. I think some of us can all remember what that was like. I think in the last few years, what we've done, at least based on the rationale that we went through at the budget meetings, is we've increased the number of devices in our school. And quite frankly, our teachers have been awesome. They've learned GAPs for education, Google Apps for Education. I think our students are perceived to be savvy with respect to their computers. I think our teachers are perceived to be savvy with respect to the teaching. So at the same time, our device numbers have grown, our PD needs ostensibly maybe have decreased. Our expertise has increased, right? So I think that's the rationale for the computer tech as opposed to the tech integrator. Just a couple more points. One is, and I can vouch for this, a lot of the curriculum that we do purchase, especially around technology, does come with targeted professional development. We have sources that come in from outside the building that come in, train teachers, work with them through that. I want to make sure that that's known, and that's a component of a lot of the things that we currently purchase. We have leveraged what we all know as Winneconne University to share the expertise already in the building as well. That was a rationale that was given. And I think, you know, to the point of losing this position forever. I think that was never really the concept that's been discussed at the administrative level. At the administrative level, the sincere conversation was, it's time to take a look at a position that was designed in 2012 in completely different circumstances, in what amounts to a different school, and have an opportunity to reinvent it, to start talking about those skills that kids are going to need in the 21st century and beyond. I think the rationale is that this gives us an opportunity to take a breath, take a beat, redefine, go through the NIAS process, redefine what we need in the tech integrator, and come to the budget committee with a proposal in the future that with a job description that more accurately represents what we want moving into the future rather than a relic from 2012. So, like I said, the vote's going to be the way it is. I thought administration needed a rationale, public needed a rationale. This was not willy-nilly. This was a hard decision and came with a lot of different conversations. I'll leave the copy center to the IT folks. So I've said my piece. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak on the amendment? Go ahead.
Hi, Jason Saltmarsh, Technology Director here at Winnacunnet, also a Northampton resident. So I guess I would like to say, number one, that I am impressed by Winneconne's passion and solidarity, and it makes me very proud to work here with these people. And I would also like to say that both individuals that hold the two positions that are being discussed tonight are exceptional people, and friends of mine personally. It's a little bit like, one of my favorite quotes lately is Lyndon B. Johnson's quote that sometimes being a leader is a lot like being a jackass in a hailstorm, and you just have to take it. There's been some misinformation that was shared tonight, I believe, perhaps misleading at times, but I would like to share with you my rationale for these two proposed changes. So with the technology integration position, it was created in 2012, and as Dave said, it was created at a time when we were focusing on training our teachers to use Chromebooks and to begin integrating the G Suite applications with their classes, using them with their students. And since that time, Winneconned High School has seen some remarkable growth in the use of all of these technologies to support teaching and instruction. Teachers and students throughout the building use a variety of digital tools every day. This progress is what helped us to successfully pivot to a remote learning environment during the early stages of the pandemic. With this increased use of technology and computers to support instruction, Winneconned is seeing a shift in the types of support most often requested by teachers and students. There's an increasing demand for immediate technical support and a decreasing demand for more general exploratory learning and instructional coaching. Much of the new technology we're using comes with targeted PD, as Dave mentioned, and we also use much of our in-house expertise through Winneconned High School University, where peers teach peers in using technology applications. The elimination of the integrator position and the addition of a computer technician is a direct response to the evolving IT support needs of our staff and our students. Put simply, this is a reorganization of human resources to reflect current need. With the Copy Center technician position, in 2019, we answered the request of staff and administrators to provide teachers and staff with the means to print, copy, and scan materials independently by placing copier units in each of the teacher workrooms. As a result, when comparing the amount of copies produced in the Copy Center in the last 6 months versus the amount of copies produced in the Copy Center in that same 6-month period prior to the installation of the copiers, the overall numbers in the Copy Center have dropped by 50%. However, the WHS Copy Center is still utilized daily and is a service that many of our staff have come to depend on for special jobs, bulk copy requests, and convenience. And therefore, the recommendation was made to keep the position, but to reduce the hours by 50% to match the current demand. These are cuts that were considered by multiple people in very diverse conversations. There was second guessing, third guessing, ultimately, my responsibility is to best support the organization and meet the demands that I'm seeing that are unmet. And suggesting that we have a full-time support technician meets the needs that I'm seeing most frequently right now. I didn't know that it was even an option to potentially talk about keeping all 3 positions. So if money's not an issue, I support all 3 wholeheartedly. But these cuts were made in a way that I was trying to be both cognizant of the financial implications of the technology budget here for Winneconned High School, as well as meeting the changing needs of teachers and staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Doesn't appear that anyone else wants to speak. Oh, Bill.
Bill McGowan, principal of Winneconned High School. And as Dr. Hobbs said, I mean, the vote will go where the vote goes. Since I've been here, since 2004, and since I've been principal since 2010, we've done a needs assessment as far as what this building needs. And up until this year, I've been very fortunate that we've been able to do that. When people have left positions, we looked at those positions. If we did not have to fill them, we wouldn't fill them. This has been very difficult because when we take a look at the needs, this time it does involve people. But at the same time, I'm going to bring forward a budget that responds to Winneconned High School. And we've been a school of excellence, and I have no desire not to continue to achieve that. But we've had a very supportive school board and budget committee that if I bring them the needs of how we need to operate the school, they will support us. This needs assessment will go on each year. If in the future, I know I will have the trust of the school board and the budget committee that if I need to bring staff members back in these positions or any other position, that they will do it. But again, this has been strictly based on needs, working with the administration, working with the IT director, working with the SAU administration. I am, in no way do I want to put Winneconned High School in a position where we do not succeed. And I feel that the budget presented with these reductions and reconfigurations, we will continue to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else who wants to speak, we're going to vote on the amendment. The amendment would raise the operating budget by $154,000. You see the updated amount included. If the amendment passes, that is what will be on the warrant article that the voters will vote on March 8th. Molly St. James is going to help you with the count. All those in favor, please raise your card and just leave them up until we tell you that we've completed everything.
Molly, you did all from that aisle?
Yeah.
And in the back there?
Yeah, there are 14.
How many?
14.
All those opposed to the amendment, raise your card. Well, that was easy. The vote was 23 yeses and 1 no. The amendment passes, and the amendment or the article that will appear on the ballot is as you see it here as it was amended. We'll move on to article number 2.
You need to make a motion for a split discussion on that one.
Excuse me?
You need anyone to make a motion for a strict discussion or changes.
If somebody would like to make that motion, then that's fine.
I make a motion to restrict any future discussion on that amendment.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
It has to be as amended, and I thought the board had to do it. No? Okay.
All those opposed? Okay. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to warrant article number 2. Who seconded the motion on that? What is your name? Okay. Okay, article number 2, auditorium lighting. To see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $80,000 to replace lighting in the auditorium at Winnacunnet High School. This project is part of the facility plan adopted by the school board. This will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 6, and will not lapse until the project is complete, or June 30th, 2025, whichever is earlier. Majority vote required. Recommended by the school board, 5-0. Recommended by the budget committee, 6-0. Is there a motion to open discussion on Article 2?
Yes. I move to open discussion on Article 2.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there someone from the school board or administration who would like to speak to the warrant?
Yes, please.
Okay, please do so.
Thank you. So the auditorium lighting warrant article in the amount of $80,000 is a raise and appropriation utilizing taxation. I will note that this was recommended unanimously by both the school board and the budget committee, and it does align with the auditorium improvement plan that we have in place and that we have been following for a number of years. And this is a full replacement and upgrade of the auditorium lighting system. It will be LED. It is a 2-year phase plan, so this is year 1 of that plan. The current system is it has become obsolete and does require replacement. This is the original system from when the auditorium was added, and the new proposed sound system is designed to provide proper lighting for both school activities as well as for outside organizations. Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to the article? Seeing none, the article number 2 will be placed on the official ballot as it was originally read and as you see it here. We'll move on to article number 3.
I would like to restrict further discussion on this article.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Article number 3, roof replacement. To see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $295,000 to replace the roof on the Technology Education Building at Winneconned High School. This project is part of the facility plan adopted by the school board. This will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 6, and it will not lapse until the project is complete, or June 30th, 2025, whichever is earlier. Majority vote is required. Recommended by the school board, 5-0. Recommended by the budget committee, 6-0. Is there a motion to open discussion on Article 3?
I move to open the discussion on Article 3.
Is there a second? Second. Is there someone from the school board or administration who would like to speak to the warrant?
Yes, please.
Please do so.
Thank you. So we are proposing the issuance of a warrant article via raise and appropriation in the amount of $295,000 to replace the Tech Ed building's roof. This is part of a campus-wide roof replacement plan. We do utilize a roofing consultant who we've been working with for a number of years, and this is the next roof in that replacement cycle. I will note that this project was deferred a year based upon economic conditions. However, this is a prudent, facilities upgrade to avoid potential future roof failure, any type of water penetration, or other unnecessary repairs or damage, and is an important part of our preventive maintenance plan. Thank you.
Is there anyone who would like to speak from the public who would like to speak to the warrant? Seeing none, Article 3 will be placed on the official ballot as read and as you see it here.
I move to restrict reconsideration on Article 3.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Article number 4, athletic field lighting. To see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $135,000 to replace and repair athletic field lighting at Winnacunnet High School. This project is part of the facility plan adopted by the school board. This will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 6, and will not lapse until the project is complete for June 30th, 2025, or June 30th, 2025, whichever is earlier. Majority vote required. Recommended by the school board, recommended by the school board 5-0, recommended by the budget committee 6-0. Is there a motion to open discussion on Article 4?
I move to open the article for discussion.
Is there a second?
Yes, I second the motion.
Is there someone from the school board or administration who would like to speak to the warrant?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. So warrant Article 4 is a proposal to issue a warrant article to raise and appropriate $135,000 for the replacement of our athletic field lighting. This is, or a portion of the athletic field lighting. The light bulbs are starting to burn out. So, and there are currently no replacements that are being manufactured that we can purchase. So the intent is to replace the current lighting with LED lighting to continue to provide that athletic lighting, provide a long-term solution, and lower electricity costs. I will also note that this proposed warrant article was unanimously recommended by both the school board and the budget committee. Thank you.
Is there someone from the public that would like to speak to the warrant? Seeing none, the warrant article 4 will appear on the ballot as written and as you see it here.
I move to restrict reconsideration for Article 4.
Is there a second?
Yes, I second that.
All those in favor, raise your card. Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Article number 5, Healthcare Expendable Trust. To see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate $50,000 to be added to the existing Healthcare Expendable Trust Fund, with up to $50,000 to be funded from June 30th, 2022. Unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2022. No additional amount to be raised from taxation. Majority vote required. Recommended by the school board 5-0. Recommended by the budget committee 6-0. Is there a motion to open discussion on Article 5?
I move to open the article for discussion.
Is there a second? Second. And I'm not even going to ask. Matt, would you like to address this warrant article?
Thank you. Yes, I love talking about warrant articles. So the school board is proposing funding the Health Insurance Expendable Trust with $50,000 using unreserved fund balance. That will be on the March 2022 ballot. I had spoken about this particular expendable trust when we were talking about health insurance premiums and what a great tool it is. And this trust was established for the purpose of safeguarding the school against increasing health insurance premiums as well as unanticipated expenditures. And further, it allows for the mitigation of any large potential budget increases or due to insurance rates or changes in elections by by under budgeting using this fund. So I will note, it's important to note that this is not funded via additional taxation. It is using unreserved fund balance, so available year-end balance. And we do have a balance of just over $250,000 with a target of $300,000. So should this pass, unless we deplete it, we will not be requesting any additional funds. Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this warrant? Seeing none, the warrant article number 5 will appear on the ballot as written and as you see it on the slide.
I move to restrict reconsideration of Article 5.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your card. All those opposed, the motion carries. Article number 6, fund balance retention. To see if the school district will vote to authorize indefinitely until rescinded or retain year-end unassigned general funds in an amount not to exceed in any fiscal year 5% of the current fiscal year's net assessment in accordance with RSA 198:4-B, Roman numeral 2. Majority vote required. Is there a motion to open discussion on Article 6?
Yes, I move to open Article 6 for discussion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Matt, would you like to take this one too?
Thank you. Yes, please. I apologize for the formatting. I am an Office guy, and clearly, when I adjusted, I downloaded PowerPoint, and that was a mistake on Google School. In any event, the fund balance retention warrant article is a non-monetary warrant article, so we will not. There's no appropriation of funds. However, there is a fiscal impact to this warrant article. What this allows is the school district to retain up to 5% of the annual operating budget as a contingency to be used in the event of any emergency or over expenditure of accounts or to assist in returning funds to help with tax rate setting. So what this allows is for us to work with the individual towns to determine how much funds to return every year to offset assessment. So if we have a big budget year, we can return more, or vice versa. So that it kind of smooths out and stabilizes tax rates in an ideal, or helps stabilize tax rates ideally. So we don't see the big fluctuations from year to year. Additionally, it helps us, if there were to be some type of emergency, what if, a boiler goes, or we have our expendable trust, but this is another safeguard. So what if we have some sort of cyber attack and a ransomware situation where we lose funds, or if there's another pandemic of some sort where there's a huge cost to us. It allows us to have the available funds and not have to go back to the town and ask for additional funding via town meeting and additional taxation, which would be my last resort, absolutely, or nightmare, I would say. So this what this does is offer flexibility with that tax rate setting, safeguards the community, and I will note that I did check with our auditor, Plodzik and Sanderson, as well as the Department of Revenue, and they indicated there's about 100 school districts that have this in place, and every town in the state has the ability to do this as well. So it's fairly common. Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this warrant article? Seeing none, the warrant article number 6 will appear on the ballot as written and as you see it here. That wraps up our...
One second.
I'd like to move to restrict reconsideration of this article.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your card. All those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. So that completes our discussion of warrant articles this year. I do want to remind voters that in addition to warrant articles 1 to 6, voters will be asked to elect the following. One school board member who is a resident of Northampton for a term of 3 years. The candidates for that position are Henry Marsh and Tamara Lay. One budget committee member who is a resident of Northampton for a term of 3 years. The candidate for that position is Jamie Marston. And one budget committee member who is a resident of Seabrook for a term of 1 year. And unfortunately, no one has filed for that position. The voting will take place on March 8th, 2022. In Hampton, it will be at the Winnacunnet Hall Dining Hall. The polls will open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. In Hampton Falls, voting will take place at the Lincoln Ackerman School Cafeteria. Polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. In Northampton, the voting will take place at the Northampton School Gymnasium. The polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And in Seabrook, the voting will take place at the Seabrook Recreation Center, and the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I encourage everyone to exercise their right to vote and get out on March 8th. That concludes the business of the deliberative session. Thank you all for your patience, and stay safe.
May I have the school board budget committee convene, because we have to re-vote.